Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
It's a gentleman named Scott Carne on the phone, and he may have been the voice that we just heard singing from Kids in the Kitchen, joining a long list of great Aussie rockers. Scott, good morning and welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show.
Well, thanks. It definitely wasn't Milli Vanilli, though.
No, it
there are
wasn't.
Lots of people who would like to get Milli Vanilli to do our program for us. They reckon they would be much better than we are.
Well, you still got that. I can still say there's still a bit of 80s in your voices, fellas. I've got to say, a bit of 80s. You must come from.
Yeah, that's almost years old too, Scott.
Yeah, I was going to say Rob's in his 80s, so that sounds fair.
That's reasonable. Hey, Scott, you are one of many. As I said, we've through connections that Neil has made, we've been really lucky to have a lot of people from bands that kept us entertained during that period, which was probably the best, that 70s, 80s period. Let's go all the way back to a very young Scott Carne. How did you get your fingers into the music industry?
Well, I actually just quickly, I didn't start listening to music till I was actually 14. I used to ride mini bikes, and we moved back from the country. Dad had a hobby. We had a hobby farm, and Dad said, "Well, let's move back to the eastern suburbs." And then I went to Blackburn Tech, and as a kid on the way to school, used to pop in and meet him before we went to school again on bikes. And this guy could play guitar with his teeth at 14, and I was mesmerised by him playing his guitar, and he said, "Oh, look, go buy a bass." I said, "Oh, okay." I bought a bass, and I was a bit rubbish on that. So I thought, well, this guy's really good. Until I get it going, I'll go to school and play with his other rival band, and just kind of get it going, and then come back to him when I've got my chops. And I rocked in, and they said, "Oh, you're not much of a bass player. Can you sing?" I said, "I don't know." That was history, and that was my first band, Magnetic Force. Great name, eh?
Absolutely.
And then from there, I went to did drama media to Boxhill TAFE, and met the first Kids in the Kitchen guy. Rehearsed for a year, and then got a couple of 2 gigs, and then within 3 months had a record contract. So there you go.
We should draw out to the talents that come out of the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, Scott. I used to be able to stand on my back veranda at home in the suburb of East Doncaster, and I could see what, to all of us, Robert won't know what Blackie Tech is, but I could see Blackie Tech from the back doorstep.
Well, yeah, that's right. Look, I loved growing up in the eastern suburbs. So, it was so much fun, and did the paper round and the whole deal as well. Kids don't know how good they got it these days, I've got to say. But yeah,
the Manningham leader it would have been.
Yeah, well, I was at Jackson Court. I was going down there getting my papers in the morning, 6 o'clock on my rickety bike with no brakes, in the dark, bring papers for $8.50 a week. I set up my grandfather. But yes, it was definitely a great time for being a kid and making music. Didn't have the distractions, so in turn we kind of rehearsed for a year. I said got a record deal within 3 months, and Change Your Mood was the first song released, and just went straight to the top of the charts. And I think 3XY broke that for us, really. The L3XY.
Oh yeah,
40 and 22 hot hits.
Lee Simon.
Well, yeah, I think that they were all in there. So it was a great. And then they went over to Eon, but let's not talk about radio stations. But yeah, the whole scene was just we rehearsed 7 nights, so you could play 7 nights a week. And you go in on any given day. And, there's 15 venues running 3 bands a night, 7 days a week, and it was just a glorious time for music, because the only other alternative was staying home watching three television stations on your black and white TV. Really,
Scott, the name of the band might be something you'd think, oh, yeah, I could easily understand how that would come about. But was it as easy as that? Did the kids in the kitchen just happen because that's where you all were?
Exactly right. We were kind of designated to the a university house in North Melbourne to the kitchen to rehearse. Would you believe? And it was a bit of a running joke, but we thought, and then when we got the first gig, we didn't have a bat. So I've got a gig, let's do it. Yeah, fine. What are we going to call the band? Let's just run it with kids in the kitchen for now because everyone's joking about it. And we thought, we'll just run it, and then we'll think of a name later. And guess what? We never did. So we're kind of stuck with this silly name.
What, compared to the other ones, you reckon that's silly? I would have thought that was a pretty sensible one.
Yeah, I don't know. But test of time, now that I'm doing shows, am I still a kid in the kitchen? I think in hindsight, it's a fun name. It kind of sums up the 80s and sums up kind of what we were doing, I guess. But yeah,
well, I guess it could have been worse though, Scott, because a lot of singers practice their singing in the bathroom, and having a band called Scott and the Dunny probably wouldn't have worked all that well.
Well, yeah, Brian Maddox always jokes when those shows with him, which is absolutely 80s show, and kind of he's always using gags about dads and the Dunny. So it's it could have been much worse than that, but I must say.
Scott, there's a commonality between the people that we've spoken to, and you have joined it. You sound like you've never forgotten where you come from, awfully proud of it, and still quite connected to it emotionally. Music's just been fun for you, and you've just been grateful of the opportunity, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm still in the business, and I haven't had to, not saying I made loads of money out of it, because the old days, you had everyone kind of, fleecing our naive young boys, but to actually have a career in music, I feel very blessed, and at the same time, it's been a bit tough, and in the 90s you couldn't get arrested. It was constant kind of transforming and just reinventing yourself. So that's what I've done, and throughout my whole career, and I got to the point now where my kids are doing music, and we've got a studio at the back, and they're kind of doing stuff, and they're up and away, and should be releasing stuff soon as well. And but I sound like my father when I say that, just get a trade, get another job. And they've done that surprisingly. So because they know how hard it is, because it's from the horse's mouth as opposed to get a real job. But it is tougher in the business now to make a living. But it's like everything, you've got to be in it to win it. And if you believe in it enough, and as I said, I haven't really had to work a day in my life, and I feel very blessed that I've had been in that situation. But it's not just luck. It's been hard work and perseverance, and for a young career out there trying to give it a crack. Go for it, but just do have something to fall back on, and be realistic about it. I mean, there's still a great industry in live playing and touring, even though we've had a bit of a tough turn over the last 3 years with like everybody. But we're just all starting to come back now, and it's great to be out there performing.
We're talking to Scott Carne from Kids in the Kitchen. Scott, just the home studio thing with the kids, are they very respectful of your career and invite you in for production tips, or are you just told to nick off and leave them to their own because you wouldn't understand modern music?
Well, Dad, and I'm always, Dad, can you get me that? Dad, can you? They call me Phil Spector. Well,
I haven't seen you for a while, Scott. But please tell me you haven't done what you did to his hair.
It won't be long. There's another profanity that goes with that Phil Spector statement, but I won't.
No, let's not. I'm fascinated also, Scott, by the fact that I knew a lot of kids who rode push bikes around the suburbs of East Doncaster delivering newspapers and went to Blackie Tech. Not many of them ended up with their face on Countdown every 10 minutes. The the sort of elevation from bike riding paperboy to being a face that you couldn't turn on the TV in the mid-1980s without seeing you at some stage soon, that must have taken a fair bit of time to come to terms with?
Yeah, it was. I kind of felt like I was kind of walking on air there for, the first part of my career, first two to 3 years. It was just because it just kind of kept on escalating. I kept on going up. We kept on going up the level, to the point where we had, Madonna's management in the States and all that kind of stuff going on. It was a real whirlwind, and wasn't really any time to grab stock, and also too, you're running ragged. No one told you to rehydrate.
Yeah.
There's none of that going on. There's no water in bottles, so you kind of end up like you're touring quite a lot. There's a lot of money to be made for the people that are around you, the record labels and agents and managers, and we were filling rooms to their capacity. We were doing it 6 nights a week for 6 months straight. So if you kind of got crook for the first part of the tour, it'd take you 3 weeks to get over it. So you kind of did micromanaging yourself to try to get yourself, back and going. But yeah, look, when you're young, you can bounce around, bounce off the walls, and come back pretty well. And that's why now we're weekend warriors. We got, even with the Absolutely 80s show or these kids shows, we do a Friday, Saturday, maybe a Sunday, and it's back in the body bag till next weekend.
Scott, I'll go, Neil.
No, I was going to say, we spoke with David Sterry last week, who claims to be one of your best mates in the music industry, so you better say the right thing and say he's one of your best mates as well. We've seen the Absolutely 80s programs with you and Brian and David and Ali Fowler and Dale Ryder and stuff. Those shows, are they a celebration of the 80s, as the name would suggest, or do you get the opportunity to play some of the stuff that you've done more recently and, introduce that to a different audience?
Look, I've got the Absolutely 80s show. So there's Kids in the Kitchen, where we just, which the gig coming up the corner, plug, which we're doing a Friday and a Saturday one at Parkland, where we do Kids in the Kitchen, and it's taking them back in the time bubble, right? So it's about playing our album, and it hits over 2 albums and some back catalogue, and it's it sounds like the record. The Absolutely 80s show is a show band. That's one with David Sterry and stuff. And I put that together with Brian Mannix years and years ago, back in after the Countdown Spectacular tour. That we thought, let's do something like this, go out on the road and do a super group. And we've been doing it for 15 years, and it's an absolute ball. And we have it's just as much fun backstage as we do on stage. We have a backing band in every state of Australia. They're a stellar band, and we do reproduce the songs exactly the same. And we throw in a few kind of covers or do a tour. We've got the Made in Australia tour rolling out at the moment. And next year there's the old hit tour. So what I'm kind of getting at is that I would never have expected that years and years later that our egos would let us onto the one stage, let alone the one minibus. It's as I said, the 80s is a gift that keeps on giving, and as if it wasn't for people, I must say, with hats off to even we talk about David Sterry from Real Life. They were back in the 80s. They were the ones that kind of broke the Australian kind of new wave scene or new romantic scene, and gave record companies here the balls to start signing local talent in the 80s, and because they had that huge hit "Send Me an Angel," and that broke and played around Australia, and then obviously broke around the world as well. But then suddenly all the A&R guys, Mushroom and EMI and the likes were running around trying to find the next Real Life, and we happened to be one of those guys, along with Cedar Echo and a few others. So yeah, right time at right place is still a big part of the business and whatnot. But look, the music that my kids are listening to now, Amel and the Sniffers, terrible name, it's probably bad as Kids in the Kitchen. Bands like the Stiff Richards, there's another one. This kind of punk, it's like this kind of punk surf music. There's a whole swell of kind of, young bands coming up that are kind of really kind of strongly Aussie-centric, and like it's almost like a little bit of a little bit tip of the hat to the kind of the old AC/DC pub rock era. It's kind of Aussie rock, and it's kind of it's punky, but it's coming out of Australia. So it's a lot of moving along a bit, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's still a great scene happening, and every decade has a little a buzz of a scene happening. But we're in the 80s. A lot of us were looking overseas for a sound, or looking over. We were very heavily influenced by English and American stuff coming in. So there's a little bit of a tall poppy about Aussie stuff being as good, but fortunately, as I said, for real life, they broke a lot of. They kind of set it up for a lot of bands like Kids in the Kitchen to have a career. So not only Countdown and Dottie Sutherland Sounds, it was just it was just loads of things, loads of ducks lining up, so to speak.
Scott, two-part question. You talked about the naivety of your early days with record companies and promoters probably ripping you off. First part...
Allegedly.
Were you sort of aware of that at the time but weren't game to challenge it for fear of being kicked off the tram, so to speak? And have those lessons been good for your kids starting off, or are the circumstances these days different where young bands and young artists can actually control their own destiny more?
Yeah, well, look, back then, money wasn't even in my in my vocabulary, and we didn't care about it. It was the music. It was and when you're having music, when you're having success, and you didn't have to worry about we still had to worry about paying for a rent and home and whatever, where we lived, or their share houses. But like what I'm saying is, we didn't have to worry about eating, and kind of we had some clothes bought for us and that kind of thing. So it was like, yeah. So as far as the whole period, we didn't kind of question it at all. But we, but because we were so young, we kind of didn't, it didn't even kind of come into our thought pattern, really. I mean, we didn't even look around and go, hang on, we're getting $250 a week, but we're putting 1,000 people into a room a night. Now that doesn't add up, does it?
Yeah.
No.
And then the managers were getting their 20% off the top, and the agents and stuff, and so there's lots of, and this has happened. This is the same story that absolutely everyone has, like all my other peers and the people I play with in the Absolutely 80 show, for instance, we've got the same story, but we've got no regrets. And now it's a situation where we go on the road, everything gets looked after and everyone gets paid well and accordingly, So it's just a story of what it is, and this conversation I have with my kids and kids coming up, people coming up now, I think it's a situation too where it's all self-managed, and because of things like Spotify and releasing records now is not in the hands of the majors and the big corporates. They're forced to do the business from the cottage industry aspect level of their career, so they learn about it from the go-get, and they're putting on shows and doing door deals and filling the rooms and stuff. They just know their own business, so it's kind of like it's a whole shift in that. There's still managers, I'm sure, out there doing stuff and taking. When people get to a certain level, they have to kind of get someone on board to do stuff. But I think that kids are a bit more switched on with it, on the whole,
Mm. Well, Scott, we're coming towards the end of our time with you, but we do need to plug your show. That's part of the reason why you're here. But I've got one question for you. When you hang up from us and the phone rings and it's a music promoter from somewhere in the world saying, we want you and or the Kids in the Kitchen to come and open for this band, who do you want that to be?
Ooh. Oh, well, there's some great festivals that David's and Drew are still often going over to Europe doing festivals with the Flock of Seagulls and God knows whoever right around the world. Look, I don't know. I just, we did one a few years back with the Culture Club, which was kind of fun. Boy George is on the wagon, so you're bringing in drinks in paper bags backstage because there's no alcohol allowed in the whole venue. But in saying that, I'd still love to do just something with, I don't know, I wouldn't, just something with a UK 80s band, like I said, one of those tours, Simple Minds would be fun. Anyone like that would be, some of the 80s would be fun. I haven't really thought about it, but I know I'm a bit envious that David's still going over doing these tours with loads of 80s names, and he has an absolute ball with it.
Neil, we try every time to ask a question that our guest has never heard before. That answer would suggest we've nailed it today.
Yeah.
This is the structured journalism that comes out of the Two Blokes Chatting radio show, Scott, and that's why we have people queuing up to be part of it.
Well, that's right.
We should also say, sorry, go on, yeah.
You got me gas bagging this morning. But yeah, no, it's been a great chat. But I'm looking forward to getting out with the boys and doing stuff. And we don't do this. We keep these gigs few and far between, so it's kind of always quick. We keep it kind of special because everyone's pretty busy. Claude Ferrand, the guitarist, is, Joe Camilleri's sideman, has been for 20 years, and Joe. It's like when we pull him off a show with Joe for a couple of Kids in the Kitchen shows. I'm sure Joe has separation anxiety. So can't do that to him too much. But so we do these kinds of shows get special. But we'd like to see ourselves by next year probably doing a couple of those bigger festival things. I think going and doing those because we do enjoy each other's company and we do reminisce a lot, and it is great therapy because it's what it is. That's what we do. That's the music people are my people. That's where I feel most comfortable. In conversation and in kind of in life. Hanging with my music people, whether it be the roadies or people in bands or the guys from the 80s show. That's my golf. Well,
if ever Joe Camilleri says you can't have him, you just tell him you've been on the Two Blokes Chatting radio show. Joe's been on here as well, and we consider him a mate. The other bloke who I know will be listening this morning, who's a friend of yours and a friend of mine, is Frankie, the man who hangs around more absolutely 80s events than anybody else I know. So Frankie Palermo, g'day. How are you, Frankie?
Oh, that's right, Frankie Valet, we call him.
Yeah.
That's the man.
He drives Brian around to the gigs, and he's driven me around a couple of times. And Dale Ryder, Frankie Valet. He loves it, and he's a mad kind of marathon runner too. He loves it.
Yep, nutcase, absolute nutcase when it comes to that. Yeah. Scott, before we let you go, tell us a bit about this event that's happening at the Corner Hotel in Richmond.
Oh yeah, cool. So we're rolling out to two shows. We've got one at Bannockburn, which is on a Friday night at the Railway, and then we've got the big one at the Corner Hotel in Richmond. And we've got a band from the 80s called Cattle Truck. They're kind of supporting us, and an 80s DJ. It's a bit of an 80s installation, and we've got Kids in the Kitchen in full flight doing a big long set there. And we've got Zan from I'm Talking, who's doing our backing vocals. She's done it a couple of times before. She's absolutely an amazing singer. And she actually sang on a couple of songs back in the day, along with a couple of our songs, along with she's singing with the likes of In Excess. I think Burn for You at the end of those songs. So all the backing vocals, her and her sister Shireen from Big Pig, they were doing the backing vocals. So yeah, we're kind of it's sounding really good, and like the record. and we put on a great show. So we just, we do treat it with pride, and it's, it's where we came from. So we treat it with respect, and it's always a fun night down there. So yeah.
The Bannockburn Hotel. What date was that again, Scott?
Oh, that's the Friday. Yeah, the Friday the 3rd, and then Saturday's Saturday the 4th is the corner.
The Bannockburn have been bringing some great artists to the town. The Kids in the Kitchen join that list Friday the 3rd of May. Check with the hotel. Get out there and get amongst it.
June,
sorry.
May.
June.
Yeah, June. We're already in May, aren't we? Oh,
yeah, I know.
Geez, time flies. June.
Yep.
Okay. Neil, you and Scott both have to go. Thank you very much for the pair of you being here today. We really do appreciate it.
So I'm going to play a song before I go, but yes, Scott's got to go.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Really appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you at Bannockburn, and best wishes continuing this incredible career that keeps giving, as you said.
Yeah, the 80s, eh? Keep giving.
Who'd have thought?
For the support, fellas. Really, really, really love the show too. Keep up good work.
Thanks,
Thanks,
mate.
Scott.
Best wishes.